warm welcome to this brand new episode of Random Contemplations on the Values Workshop. Um, I have two guests which generally I fall back upon when I want to have an intense and easy conversation with. This time I have been lucky enough to get Manoj Khatri with me again. Welcome, Manoj, to the show again.
Thank you, Surinder. Nice to be here again.
Yeah. So, since we were talking stuff about the online media and how it works, how the algorithms work, and how people get popular or not, for that
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Uh, Suppose we were to, compare it with the real world. Um, I had read this joke somewhere that I went on saying, like showing a thumbs up to everybody on the street, and people were looking at me like crazy. And when I do the same thing to their online sharings, they get very happy about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I found that was quite an amusing way to look at things. There's another thing that being a very sensitive observer of human behavior in public, uh, thanks to my profession mainly, uh, there were a couple of times when I realized we've been talking to ourselves a lot more because we have these gadgets that are almost hidden in our ears or behind our ears or stuff like that, where it seems that you're talking to yourself, but you're actually on a phone call.
Yeah.
Um, where does one draw the line between the real world and the online world for you? Uh, we are all engaged into it quite deeply, much more than we did pre-COVID, I would think. How do you see this trend and how do you relate to it on a personal level?
For me, in the beginning, the online world seemed sort of like, a seamless extension of the offline connections that we have. Because initially, when you go online, way back in 2008 and 2006 and 2010, like in that period, when Facebook was new, when Twitter was new, uh, on Facebook, we were connecting with friends we all, in the real world. And so in the beginning, it seemed to be like just a natural extension. And also, we were not really spending that much time on it. But then as their algorithms evolved and they found ways to keep us hooked on, and they figured out what you call as, the attention economy, where they discovered that, okay, the longer we keep them, the more they can monetize. So they're monetizing our attention. So as they say, nothing is free. If Facebook is free for you to use, you're paying it with your attention. If Instagram is free, you're paying it with your attention. So initially, it seemed normal and natural, but then we started to get like sucked in, and I was no exception. I would spend longer and longer durations, on Facebook and Twitter, on Instagram. And at some point, the realization started to dawn that I'm spending inordinately large, time of my day on social media. And it was not just the time that was getting wasted. It was also messing up with, the mindset, the thinking, because there is this thing, where they figure out an algorithm on Instagram or on Facebook, and, and then there is this, they created what you call as the infinite scroll. And then on your feed, as they call it, they will keep showing you things that are likely to create engagement. And that could, so, what started to happen was that it started becoming very unnatural, because first of all, my connections grew, to inorganic. So a lot of people who I had not met face to face or didn't, know them personally at a close level, we started connecting with them, and then we started to kind of see their posts and react to them and engage with them, comment with them and all that. And then at some point, what happened was, uh, there was like there was a lot of madness that started to happen, in the sense that suddenly there would be something joyful, and then the next item on the feed would be something very, very disturbing. Then the next item would be something very funny. Then the next item would be something, thought provoking. And the brain doesn't know how to. We've never been like that. So so much switching happening, continuously, is something that the brain is not evolved for. So I started to realize that it's messing with my ability to think clearly, and I was also, I think, as I'm sure all of us do, we tend to react when we see something that is provocative in whichever way, provocative in a personal sense, or in a social sense, where we feel something very strongly about, let's say, a social issue, and then we tend to comment or engage with people on it. And I started getting surprised when I started to interact with people and started to, like, initially you feel like, okay, your friends and how they're going to react. But when you start looking at, and somehow behind the computer screen, people are different. So when the real engagement began with them, it started to kind of feel a little awkward and feel a little disturbing to me. Thought, this isn't real, because this is very, very limited. I'm only reading words. I have no other way of knowing what the person is. The larger context is missing. Language is so much more. It's a lot of it is nonverbal, but we were like depending a lot more on only the words we were reading, in comments and others. So I kind of started to take a step back. So coming back to your original question, where do I draw a line? I drew a very strict boundary for myself, and I decided that I'm not going to, spend a lot of time on social media. I completely stopped posting on Facebook a couple of years ago, completely. So there have been no posts except for probably a thank you or something for my birthday wishes. And I don't post on Instagram. I don't post much on LinkedIn. Once in a while, maybe, just to keep like in touch with business associates and connections, and that's it. But nothing more. So I think it's very important for you to, because otherwise you lose context.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a virtual world, and the virtual world is not real in the sense that it would have been real if it was left to grow organically. But the virtual world is not real. It is controlled by 3 or 4 monoliths, and they are doing everything. You know, uh, they are basically dictated by the profit motive. So I'm not saying they're evil or anything, but they're doing it because they want to push up their bottom lines. And as a result, probably even they didn't know what kind of monsters they're creating in the process. Yeah. And
How
so
they did perhaps.
the algorithms are such, that if you have engaged with something, and if they know that you are the kind who, and algorithms kind of know, with your behavior pattern of the kind of clicks you do, or what kind of videos you watch on YouTube, the algorithms are pretty, smart, especially with AI, in the picture. And so it tends to exaggerate everything. So let's take the example of health. I mean, if, because that's been my space, I publish a magazine, which has been in the space of health for the last almost 18, 20 years. And so I noticed that increasingly the health space is becoming very, very, very complex. There are so-called health influencers, who are very convincing when you listen to them, but that's not really always backed by research. And often research itself is something that we can't rely upon, because that itself is also skewed, because it is, again, the research has a motive. So there are very few pure scientists left on this earth, academics, as you call them. Most of them are funded by pharmaceutical companies, or funded by, somebody who's going to benefit from. So you can't really expect it to be totally, unadulterated. So what happens is, when you're on social media, you're constantly getting exposed to this kind of information. And I think if we are not careful, and if you're not stepping back, and if you're not really gathering your, senses about it, you can get lost in that black hole, because you would not really know what's right, what's wrong, you won't be able to make any kind of uh, discernments anymore, And so that's a danger that I sensed. I started to sense it when it was COVID, like to 2020. By 21, I started to kind of reduce my interactions with social media. By 22, I completely stopped it. Now I go to, so when I don't post, I'm not looking for, whether there is anybody who has reacted. Is there somebody who has commented? And, do I have like, do I have an obligation to like respond to them, because they may be good friends or colleagues or whatever. So no such thing is happening anymore. So there is no real motivation for me to visit social media. So now I visit only once in a while when I feel like visiting. And that has sort of freed up a lot of my time and my mental space, A lot of emotional and mental space has been freed up, which then I focus on what is really a priority for me.
Okay. The longish answer, a lot of questions came and went, because everything was so pointed and led to many more subtle paths that one could have traversed. But one specific thing that I realized last week itself. So last 2 weeks were a little tough on my health in terms of, I had a stomach ailment of sorts.
Okay.
A very small infection, but it was persistent and wasn't going. And when in the throes of the pain for the first 2 days or whatever discomfort I had, I did not miss the social media at all. And I am quite an addict. I would want to compare with you the way you are describing. And I am there because, not that I cannot switch off. I switch off once a week completely, 24 hours. I do not look at it on a particular day. But otherwise, I engage with it quite a lot and willfully waste time sometimes. Because of the way you explained the algorithm bit, I realized that what I've done is to use it very sensibly in the sense of the topics I engage in. So there are, my own interest is spirituality and different ways of thought, or science sometimes. Health is something that I look at. So my feed is full of that. But today, while listening to you, I realized, but it is because sometimes it's like, even one good thing that you read needs a lot of contemplation. Once you get into the subtlety of the understanding of whatever is being processed.
Right.
And that wasn't happening. And this is a realization a couple of months back. I realized when I've been following one or two new accounts which post a lot of good stuff.
Yep.
So I realized this lot of good stuff made it like one day I was just seeing something, I loved it, I shared it. Again, I saw something, I loved it, I shared it. Again, I saw something. The third one hit me like, see, these are very good, deeper level of understanding.
Right.
And I get this kick of, oh, so many people are viewing it and a lot of them respond. It helps people, I'm told, and whatever. Yet the third one, when I shared it, gave me the sense of, where does this stop? I did not stop. On that particular day, I did, but it kind of continues once in a while. But at least because of the third thing, if I see one or two good posts, I just stop. I just stop for that moment and switch off and try and do something else. Or else at least switch off the topic and go to something which is more deliberate in terms of my search.
Right.
So, coming back to my health, so in the throes of pain, I just did not care about any of those things I used to read, which is something I did understand, that experiential learning, your own stumbling upon your truths on the basis of your senses and your deeper contemplations, and it's an engagement, even if you're just engaging with yourself. Spirituality or meditation does not exist in a vacuum.
Right.
Your personal, physical, and mental reactions, impulses, uh, learnings related to those, all of that happens only when you create that space for yourself where you're not being clever or not just being intellectual, you're just being exploratory and trying to figure out uh, what is your mind or your body trying to tell you, or what are the connections that are being made. uh, are they verifiable? uh, the pain was good that way, because I realized that I am not as deep a meditator as I thought I was, because I was absolutely in the zone of, oh man, this is, when will this finish off? So my doctor actually told me that, are you stressed about something? And I said, no, I'm not stressed about anything. And he says, have you been thinking that, oh, this pain has been, I said, yeah, matlab, it's now 1.5 weeks. So he laughed. He says, all ailments need not go in 2 days. So relax. And I said, yeah, I've been stressed about this yesterday for sure. I was thinking that, man,
Mhm.
because it was interfering with everything, my diet, uh, we are a small family. So other things were suddenly
Mhm.
very important. I needed to spend time on work. And
Right.
so all these things that were happening simultaneously did tell me that this world is far more real, in the sense of I can experience it. I cannot detach myself unless I reach that point. Obviously, there are levels of detachment, but you have to work and reach a point where you. So, in the social context, the other thing that hit me is that words have power because we give them power.
Okay.
Whether I uh, write, I am a very mindful writer, in the sense of uh, it may not be the best expression, but it has to mean what I'm trying to mean. Uh, to
Sorry, I
explain,
lost you. Can you repeat?
I want to repeat that.
Hmm.
I do not use flair to cover up for my
Right. I get it.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the lack of meaning.
I got it. Yes.
So so the deliberation is in the intent.
Hmm.
Deliberation is in the choice and the time it takes to make that choice.
Beautiful. I like that.
The word itself is unimportant. It may really not be the best word, but
Right.
if that collection of words together brings that ambience that I want to create for you, whether as a client or even when I'm sharing these podcasts, so I share a small note on what I feel about the podcast. So it is I just check for genuine part of it, authenticity part of it.
Hmm.
Is it what I really feel? Can I use this word to communicate what I want to say?
Hmm.
And this requires me to be quiet,
Yes.
or at least quiet for the moment, so that the flow is real, the flow is more genuine, more tailored towards the intended communication,
Right.
which also I do when I share stuff which I write on social media,
Hmm.
poems, um, or a little note with a forward. So what I try and do is, if I do not, I feel the feeling is too complex for me to make that stream of words happen along with that forward, I just do not post. I will just write wow, outstanding, something which kind of is a mood, but not
Sure.
really anything more.
Hmm.
Which you are very free to discard, because I have not colored you beyond the feeling that, oh, I felt this temporary high,
Hmm.
or low if one is talking about something negative. So my question to you, not even a question, from my
Right.
meandering of thoughts, do you I want to know about your offline world, because one funny question that propped up when you were talking, what do you do with your time if you don't spend it on Insta or Facebook? I have completely forgotten that space. So please enlighten me. Give me, what were you doing 1 hour back from now,
So
for
I'll
example?
so there are so when you begin to prioritize, one of the things I did, for instance, where I realized that the social media, that is not, I don't know whether to really call it social media, but it is in a way to call it that is quite valuable to me, is YouTube, because I'm able to find really uh, very insightful, very interesting content that I'm interested in. So one thing I did was I subscribed to the paid version of it, so that I will not be wasting time on advertisements, and there will be no interruptions. And so that's something that's worth it. And I have enjoyed, I'm in the third year of my subscription, and I'm absolutely love it. So to answer your question, what I was doing or what I do with my free time, I think what I used to do before social media came. I read a lot, uh, and some part of it is audiobooks now. They're available both on Audible as well as on YouTube, some of them. So I listen to audiobooks, or I listen to other podcasts. People who are um, people who I am fascinated by, and so I kind of I'm very intrigued by a variety of things, and they are all kind of connected with each other. So there's health, there's spirituality. Uh, I don't like that word, but there's no other word for it. So generally,
Little
things that
pompous.
expand, that's things that expand my awareness of myself and the world and the way I relate to it and all of that. And because it's too loaded, I mean, everything has become spirituality. So I don't know. So that's why I don't like it. But for lack of a better word, still the most precise word. So
True.
so that, and also science, a lot of science that intrigues me, fascinates me. So I watch and read a lot about that. I like the latest kind of insights that come from the world of science and into consciousness.
Okay.
That is something that I'm very intrigued by. And quantum physics and consciousness are coming so close, and yet they are still very, very far. So it's fascinating to see. I don't make any conclusions. I don't really go there to enhance my knowledge as such, because I generally don't now uh, believe anything just
That was
because it
fine.
was said by an authority or a big scientist, or whoever, a spiritual master, anything. If it resonates, yes, I'll probably spend a little time contemplating. But other than that, I don't go there to kind of become more knowledgeable so that I can, go and participate in discussions with others and show off as to how great I am or how much I know. I don't do that. I'm just there, in that space, and let me see. And basically what helps me is to get into the space where I'm intrigue, in awe, always, as much as possible. I like that. And in fact, yesterday when we were speaking about this, a long time ago, I really love that quote, of Rumi: "Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderness." Or so he's talking about being in awe of, and there's so much to be in awe of. But with social media, we tend to lose that perspective. Children are naturally, there in that space. But technology is kind of, unfortunately, for even children, that's not happening anymore. Because yesterday, when we were speaking, I just remembered that an incident. I actually happened to read this on a group on Facebook 3 years ago, I think. It was pretty fascinating. A father was posting, this was COVID time, all on classes had gone online. Schools were, not operational in the premises. So uh, small students, sitting in front of the screen, logging in the morning at 9 o'clock. So that was their classroom. Their home has become their classroom. So obviously there were parents around. So there was this father who had shared this very interesting incident where his 7, 8 year old daughter, I'm not sure it was daughter, I think it was a daughter, uh, was given a class assignment by a teacher. The assignment was to go and look at the night sky and observe the stars and the moon and all the planets and all of that. So she went, escorted by her father uh, at that night. And next morning, when she logged in, she was very excited to share that she was able to spot Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, at night. So, and the father was, listening, kind of eavesdropping on the interaction between her and the teacher. So so the teacher, it was a homework assignment. So teacher started asking, so what did you do? And all. So then this student's turn came. She said, excitedly, my teacher, I saw Jupiter in the sky. And so the next response, what would you expect that response to be to such a thing?
I don't know. How did you know it was Jupiter?
Yes. You would say, how did you know it was Jupiter? Where in the sky did you spot it? What was next to it? Was the moon there? Were the other stars? Who told you it was Jupiter? All of those questions, right? You know what the question was from the teacher? The next question, the reaction from the teacher. Did you click a photograph? This is what we are teaching our kids. So technology is such a, you know,
Oh, I thought it was to
such,
teach her that you don't need to. I
and
saw it the other way around.
the thing is, that's the surprising part. Like, I don't know. I mean, even the teachers probably, you know, not doing it with a malified intent or something like that. But
Of course not.
it's just the way things have, like, your experience needs to be validated by some
Wise.
proof, because we are in the Instagram age. So if you go out, how do you prove that you've gone out? And I want to tell you that I did this, but I can't tell you unless I have some proof. So I need to share a video or a clip or a photograph or something of that sort. My word is not enough anymore. And engagement isn't happening on that front because you're not really asking, okay, tell me more about it. It's like, I want to go there with you right now, so let me see that photograph. So and so what happens is we are teaching the children that unless you capture that moment, but when I capture that moment, I'm not present to it, because I'm now more bothered about the photograph and how it will look and whether it is clear enough than being in awe of that moment. So that, I think, is where I would say I do. Like, I try to. I'm not perfect on it, or there's still a lot, but still, I think I spend a lot more time spending in this space of questions and this space of intrigue, which I like. And I find that social media isn't a place for questions. There's the people only sharing things, and there's very little thought-provoking stuff happening anymore. Everybody's, either trying to sell you something because everybody has a master class or something like that, on Instagram, and everybody is trying to teach you either to write better or to coach others or to do yoga or to do anything. I mean, every aspect of life has become sort of commercialized, and you have packaged it in a certain way, and we have influencers and we have all. So to me, it seems very and I also see a lot of people who are actually very stressed about all of this because they feel they don't belong because they're not there. And they see their contemporaries, their peers out there, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram. I find LinkedIn also, frankly, quite uh, sad, because I find that, I mean, I would expect LinkedIn to be about business, about work, about professionalism, but it's turned into this whole hodgepodge of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram together. And very little about work. And even if there is work, there are content creators. LinkedIn itself is trying. It has approached me so many times because I'm in this space of content. Why don't you write and do this and we will do that. So somehow I feel it's all being it's back to front now, isn't it? It's like I don't write because there's something for me to say. I say something because something else is motivating me. Maybe the money, maybe the fame, maybe connections, maybe something else. But it's weird.
Very thought-provoking answers. Again, longish answers, other questions coming, but I stick to one question which kind of tells me something that I want to know. So there is one provocative angle I want to bring up. You mentioned that, say, you read books or you go to YouTube, see videos, basically consume information, but you also put out a rider saying that I don't do it necessarily so that I gain more knowledge out of it.
I'm not doing it for learning new
Yeah,
things. Always. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
more to just explore what's being done and what others are doing.
Mostly, I mean, there may be specific instances when I want to learn something. For example, I want to learn a yoga pose, or I want to do like a certain workout, like let's say. Then there is obviously then that's very specific. Then I go to YouTube and say, let me see what is the exact posture, what is the form, because it's very important in yoga and workouts. And then so from that point of view, yes, I will learn. Similarly, about health, if I want to know specifically about, let's say, what particular nutrient is which food is rich in one particular nutrient, then I'll go look up on the internet. And so that much is just very specific.
So my question is, since you have the benefit of being off social media a bit more than a lot of us perhaps do, being a very avid reader for many years, at some point I just dropped reading. I do not know why or what and when it happened. Just the idea of cleverness just dropped by itself, and I that for a time I switched to reading Dhamma books, understanding where what the Buddha has said, what is the learning, what are other monks saying. It helped me a great deal in making up my mind on my chosen path and relevance, resonance of things that are otherwise far too subtle. Sometimes you don't have the words for it, and you, as a human being, you are intrigued. What do they really mean?
Right.
Like, okay, this is an experience happening to me, or this is my take on things. How does somebody else who's on the path? So I want to give a disclaimer here. To me, everybody is on the path. It only varies on where you are on the path. So all the biggies that we follow, the Guru Nanaks, the Buddhas, the Krishnamurtis, whosoever you want to name,
Right.
Your particular guru, whoever it is, even the gods, Krishna, whatever, Vittal, they stand for something. We have stories around their miracles or the lack of miracles, whatever anybody. I think everything is a miracle for me. It doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that we are able to talk, which I was unable to 1 week back in this mind frame. And like this morning, I just gave a thank you to I don't even know who, just because my tummy felt okay. I could eat what I wanted. And I was just feeling a sense of well being that was absent. So I just said, thank you, whoever it is, for this, giving me back whatever is so essential to me to perform, to exist. So on this path, all of us are variables, and at some point we learn from people who are behind us, further than us, with us, our own selves in the morning or an hour back, whatever. All of these are ideas available to us, and we are the universe experiencing the universe of sorts.
Yeah.
and figuring out one element and saying, oh, this is how it works. So my question specifically is, rather my provocation is, do you agree that in the space that we are exploring, very often words are can be misleading, can be um, a hindrance, and sometimes the most essential learnings for us as human beings may not have any words or any way of exploring or experiencing. I'm saying exploring in the sense that you put it in a format so that somebody else can follow it. And you say, this is how it is. And what do you do when such experiences happen? How do you, because you mentioned the word awe, you also mentioned that you are a reader. The reader, okay, I'll contextualize why the reader bit came in, because it is ready-made knowledge. There are words and there are certain
Which
meanings
is
associated to it. And because we've been readers for so long, so there is this habit of seeing this. So when I'm talking to you, there is this string of words that is formed in a certain sentence. But we forget that this is presuming both of us know English. Both of us see the meaning of the word as what we think it does.
right.
Both of us are in the right frame of mind to exchange these ideas and accept them with the basic understanding that these mean what they mean. All of these are things that are important to the conversation. We could be fighting on the same word if we were not. So now what is at work is not the word, not the meaning, but something else. And that something else is undefined.
Right.
Just a vibe, if you want to call it something, or it's just a feel, whatever. How do you ensure your learning maintains, if quote unquote, this purity of understanding or wisdom that arises regardless of words and based on your own humanity, if possible? These are just words. I'm just trying to throw a question. I hope you understand.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but part of the answer lies in your question itself. You talked about the like when I mentioned that I'm not, when I go and I read or watch something, I'm not going there with the idea of learning something. So therefore the words therefore lose some of their power for me, because I'm not out there to try and make sense in one way, yes, because if it connects or it resonates, if it creates in me an intrigue, if it creates in me a fascination for a certain idea, then that is what I'm always looking for. I'm not looking for understanding. To be honest, I'm not really looking for understanding the phenomenal world, because the phenomenal world has been, we've spent enough time, we know the physics behind it, we know the laws of the physics, we know a lot of these things that are happening, and we've studied, we are educated, so called. So that's a completely different thing, but
Yeah.
a different subject altogether. But yeah, so I'm not really looking for so therefore I think by the virtue of you use the word intent in the beginning, so that when you're talking about your own writing, and the intent is more important, right? So it's just the same. I approach the intent behind reading something matters. If it's not about trying to understand the words, but I'm trying to grasp
The truth.
that essence, which is not necessarily possible to be expressed in words. So yes, uh, um, I would say that, uh, and also I don't read like, I wouldn't call myself a voracious reader. So I take time to do things. I take time to read. So there was a time when I would read a lot. Okay, so I have a huge collection of books, and I should be pretty proud of it once upon a time, because they say that if your bookshelf is bigger than your television, then that makes
You know,
I mean something like that. I mean, no longer all of that, but yeah, I mean, I have like I've spent a fortune on books, and I have read lots and lots of books in the past, but I don't read that much anymore. I don't even write that much anymore.
Yeah,
That's why I actually hesitate when people ask me what I do. I used to earlier say I'm a writer, but I don't say that anymore. Because first of all, it kind of straight jackets you into, a certain sort of mold, which I feel I don't want to be in to myself. But I read with a lot of spaciousness around it. I like to like I like to kind of, what should I say,
in it.
absorb it, in a, like, let it marinate.
Yeah.
If the idea is really there, and if it's connected with me at some level, I don't like to rush through a book and finish it and reach the end and start the next. I'm not reading any fiction, that I want to know the mystery of whatever, the killer, who done it and all that. No, it's not like that. I'm reading because this mystery is unsolvable.
Rather, I thought you stumbled upon you done it.
No, I'm just generally kind of in, I like to read without concluding. That's the way I would like to put it.
Beautiful.
Conclusions are no longer there for me. I mean, I know that any conclusion I arrive at is inherently going to be either incomplete or false. It's not going, because there is no way to really know, because there are so many different dimensions to anything. And no matter how well researched something is, it is impossible for the human mind or even the collective human psyche to actually see all sides simultaneously. It's not possible, because there are almost an infinite number of ways to look at something. And so I don't like to conclude. I like to read. I like to, be in that space of not being sure of anything, not being certain of anything. And probably that is one of the reasons why I don't like to write a lot, because a lot of people have asked me why you stopped writing, or why don't you? And I don't know, because I can't say anything for certain now.
Okay, this is so beautiful because I've always had a very typical question at the end of this kind of answer where the uncertainty part comes up.
Okay.
Um, but today I have a new question, surprisingly. So, how do you handle this uncertainty? I want to contextualize in the world that we live. So, if you and I are talking, so you are wearing a red or a maroon T-shirt, or at least this category of color. At least we need to define something so that we can both
Yeah.
arrive at the communication bit of it,
Yes.
or understanding what you're communicating, or whatever part of it. We are so hell-bent on being certain of things because it gives us a lot of pleasure to think I know. And without scoffing at the whole idea, the journey from being apes or Neanderthals to now would have definitely, uh, as our brain size is compressed and we started to make connections and the intellect developed, and as animals or as social animals or as a species itself, we it became imperative for us to survive this sense of understanding. Now from there, uh, I find a lot of people who are searching or who are seeking. I would just leave the open-endedness of seeking here. You could be seeking anything that is, to use your term, non-phenomenal. But basically, the truth of what is, how are things the way they are,
Right.
or what makes them happen in the ways. And we're just studying processes and mild completions, because even I do not like the word conclusion or completion because one doesn't really know.
Yeah.
And uh, my mind has deceived me enough every now and then that whatever I thought in the morning was a strong truth, and yes, this is it. By the afternoon, I'm already loose on that, and
Right.
by the evening, I am convinced of the exact opposite of that truth. And now I'm convinced that now I know the both sides of the truth, and then there a third one appears, and so I have been deceived long enough by my own genius, um, and I do not believe in it anymore. I've realized that it is a passing phenomena. I will not deny the humanity of feeling happy about conclusions. At some point, I feel at least this problem is this.
Mm.
But over a period, I think, like you, I have also started liking questions, queries. I've stopped cherishing opinions, even if they are mine. Uh, they're there, of course. I have regular fights, and even while sometimes I may be on my bike and somebody uh, cuts me across or something, and I'll land up saying something rash. Things happen on certain days when one is a little overwhelmed by something else. I do not know why.
Yeah, of course. Mm.
But more or less, I forgive myself. I forgive the other guy. I'll send vibes to myself, to the other person, to whatever. I let loose of whatever
Mm.
was
Mm.
decided in that moment. Okay, this is right or this is wrong. I just let it be. It's okay.
Mm.
We shall see.
Right.
Now, my question to you specifically is about how do you make your peace with this uncertainty? And if you do, share the secret so that our readers, or sorry, our viewers here can look at certain ways that they can arrive at this and feel peaceful about it. Because I realize that when I'm talking to you, there is no burden on me to explain myself in a manner that you understand. I
Mm.
presume that you will, but
Yeah.
I'm okay if you don't. But often that does not happen in the world where other people are seeking other things, more worldly things, where being definite is a useful trait. So if you and I are meeting and it's your birthday and I'm getting you a gift, and it's a presumed truth between us that, oh, whenever we meet we are these social friends that we need to, because your wife thinks that we are such good friends, अरे ये खाली हाथ कैसा आ गया, ये वाला version or whatever. कोई भी मतलब I am just giving a random example. So those things create a problem when I'm talking to a lot of people, when they do not get what I'm saying, or when they continue being in that space where definitive answers are required, and I'm unable to say why am I, because it is also seen as a falsehood कि कल तो आप एकदम पक्का थे कि आपका यही सच है, बट अभी वो कल तक सच था मेरा अभी नहीं है, तो और मैं ईमानदारी से बोल भी रहा हूँ कि हाँ अभी वो नहीं है, बट कल तो आप इस पे फाइट कर रहे थे, तो अभी फिर समझ नहीं आता, क्योंकि when you arrive at the truth, for that moment it has its hold on you.
Mm. Mm.
So there is that beauty of certainty, and yet you are talking here about being comfortable with uncertain. So over to you, how do you manage this conflict? Is
I
there a
don't.
conflict?
I actually don't manage it at all. I let it be, like you said. You let things be. You know, you are not going to. There is uh, a lot of wisdom in acceptance. You know, and acceptance of yourself and the world the way it is. We
Yes.
are all work in progress, and I know that there is a lot that I need to not really work on. I mean, in the sense the work will happen, and but it's like there is a lot that probably is going to change about me, in me, the way I think of matters and all. But I've come to a point where it's no longer very necessary for me to be either here or there. You know, uh, it's in the daily kind of transactional world, certainty is needed. So yeah, so those things we kind of take it, and but we know that in the larger context even that is uncertain.
Yeah.
Nothing is really certain. Nothing is. You may say, that, oh, for example, life insurance is such a joke for me. They say, like, they insure, isn't it? I find that whole idea quite questionable.
For any sponsors looking at my podcast here,
Sorry about
to say that
that.
the views of the guest are their own. I subscribe to whatever view you want me to. But
I'm not
even
saying
that is
it's wrong.
uncertain.
I'm not saying it's wrong in a way, but it's just the way it's promoted. The way it's
Yes.
promoted itself is, uh,
Is
is
selling
something that
fear.
exactly. I'm not saying the question is you do it. Like, no, because life is uncertain, do it. But why create fear? They go about trying to sell by creating fear, right? Now, the thing is that life being uncertain is something that is a fact of the matter. It is a fact. It is an undeniable fact. Anything can happen anytime to anybody.
Yeah.
It is not unknown. So, in general, you say life is uncertain. Life insurance is a way to do this now. But obviously, again, other motivations come in, shareholder value comes in, profit motive comes in, all of those things come in. And then there's pressure on all these sales guys, and then they are also kind of at their wits end how to sell, so they will write their own. So it's a very convoluted thing, because it's not like any one person's fault, or it's not like designed like that. It just takes that kind of a form,
Life of
eventually.
its own.
Yeah, but life is uncertain. Everything in life is uncertain. Uncertainty is such a given that it would be surprising if somebody would actually not take that for granted and strive to achieve anything opposed to it. The very in Buddhism they will call it impermanence. Impermanence is what makes everything possible. Otherwise, you know, how any phenomenon will be possible if it is anything is permanent? It's not possible. Everything is in a flux, and therefore
Happening.
is what is life. Life means movement, right? Life means change.
Well said.
And we are saying, so you come to that stage where when we are growing up, we grow up with those social uh, what do you say, conventional ways of thinking, where we are told that you need to work hard, you need to succeed, you need to find a stable career, make a name for yourself, do well and all, and have a stable secure kind of career and life and all of that. So when you're growing up, we are growing up with the idea that we need to strive for reaching a point where everything will kind of become permanent. Even our uh, literature is like that. Like a lot of what we are exposed to, not the real original literature, but whatever we are exposed to. So if you see Shakespeare is not about that. There's a lot of violence and lots of other things. But if you see in our lots of Bollywood films would be a lot like fairy tales, they lived
Dies.
happily ever after. But the point is that there is a struggle, and the struggle ends, and then what happens? A new struggle will begin in some or the other form. But we think that's the end. So in our mind, our brains have kind of been conditioned to believe that there is a certain point where we have to reach where struggles will end. And we will be in a state of perpetual certainty, at least from certain point, in certain ways. I think that's a folly. And I think once we come to the understanding that, that's not going to happen, because every day there is a new challenge, all the time there's a new, um, you know,
Obstacle to be
new threat
crossed.
coming up, new issues coming up we need to tackle. Once we know that life is full of that, and that is what makes you alive, and that is how it is going to be, then you kind of relax into that uncertainty. So relaxing, I think, into that uncertainty will again free you up in to a large extent. Uh, uh, I'm not saying that therefore you'll become like like enlightened totally or something. That's something I don't know all of that. I've read stories about the Buddha and others, who have been enlightened. I don't know all of that. There is reverence for such figures because of the beautiful wisdom that they have left behind. But experientially, I don't know what all of that means. So I don't try to get there. Therefore, even enlightenment is not a point. I don't want to keep that as a, like, there was a point in time, when I first came to know about all this, hey, I want to be like that. Like when you're young and you're like, oh, this seems very fascinating. It'll be so nice to be in that. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So how can I actually say?
Wonderful. I think a week or so back, I was talking to my teenage kid and I started a conversation with the same understanding, saying, as long as you enter a conversation with the certainty that your heart will be broken, you'll
Can you
always be
repeat that? Because I think I lost you. What was the first part?
okay. I was talking to my teenage kid and I said, as long as you enter every conversation,
Hmm.
certain that your heart will be broken, you will always be okay.
Wow.
And I do not know where that came from, and I find a lot of peace and wisdom that arrives at the tip of my tongue without my planning. And I say, oh wow, this is perfect.
Right.
In a similar manner, your answer, I do not know about how many viewers will go to the depth of what you're saying, but I found a lot of peace and a certain sense of ease in the way you explained it. The words fell in place, the meaning was right there. And I just felt, okay, this is a good place to pause the conversation and maybe take it some other place sometime.
Yeah.
But for now, thank you so much for the depth of conversation, for the ease of being, uh, for the authenticity of your explanations. Uh, it's very important that this platform be used for exploring things that are difficult to understand, and the hurt, the pain, the uncertainty is fairly real and very difficult when one is going through in an overwhelming manner.
Yes.
And the the reason and the intent has always been that one can give even one moment of peace with these
Yeah.
conversations. Um, so I am very thankful for this contribution today from your end as well.
Oh,
Um,
I'm thankful to you for actually, asking me these kind of questions. And to be honest, just the way you said your answer, your what you said to your son just came at the tip of your tongue, and I think these things just happen. I mean, when you're like in the flow, and I think there is a deeper wisdom that's probably available to all of us. All we need to do is, let go and let be.
yes.
Yeah. So
That
there
is
are
so.
going to be times with you, me, all of us do that. I just a couple of days ago, I was driving somewhere and I had my kids behind, and somebody kind of was driving very rashly, tried to cut and had absolutely utter disregard, to, and I saw that surge of irritation and annoyance, and I said, what is this man doing? Why can't he? That happens. But then, earlier I would probably be seething with anger for like maybe the next few hours and all. And now it just kind of dissolves within the next, few minutes, or not even a minute or so. It goes away because you come to realize that God knows there are so many contexts to it. Who knows why he did that? What was his state of mind? There's no way to know that. And maybe he's not, he's on his journey. Probably, he'll reach some stage where he'll realize that he shouldn't do that. So,
It's wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for this conversation. And I shall see you. I'm not letting you go so soon. We shall have quite a few conversations.
sure, sure. And next time I'm going to be the one asking you questions.
Please do that. Please do that. I will also look forward to knowing what I feel about subjects that I haven't contemplated about
Right.
on camera for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Yes.